Hello students, Eric Magidson here. This is Module 2, Lesson 12, and right here on the right are the outcomes for this lesson. So as you can see, I'm already using Microsoft Word. I've copy and pasted the outcomes from Blackboard and then just formatted them a little bit into a bulleted list so we can make sure that we cover all of them. So the first one is to create a new Word document. Well, of course, the first thing we need to do is open up Word. So in Windows 10, I'm just going to come to my search here and type in Word. I like this because that way I don't have to keep a bunch of programs open in my taskbar or shortcuts or whatever. And I'm just going to choose blank document. So here's a blank document. Let me go ahead and widen that up here. Okay. Now I'll show you this really cool trick. I need some text to do the rest of this stuff. So I'm going to type equals rand. Then I'm going to do a left parenthesis like that. 10, 10, and a right parenthesis. And this is actually a little code that, watch what happens when I hit enter. No spaces, just enter. It creates text for me. And if we look at this text, it's pretty clear where it's coming from. It's coming from the help files for Microsoft Word. Okay, so it's kind of like lorem ipsum text, and I can then work on other things. So creating a new Word document, that's what I did here. Let's talk about a best practice. When we first start up a Word document, even before we type, we should come up here and go File. I'll do a Save As. I'm going to just throw this. If you notice here, I'm going to expand this a little bit, and I will just throw this onto my desktop. So let me find my desktop. There it is. And I'm going to give it first initial, last name, test Word document. So there's my test Word document, and I save that, and it'll take me back to the content. If you notice up here, all the way up here, is the file name now. So I now have a file name so that if I am to, keep the file, save, it's just good practice. Start with a file name. So change Word settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to File, and this takes me to the area called Backstage. So let's go Backstage. We can go to the options here. And in the options, there are a lot of things we can change. For example, the Show Mini Toolbar on Selection. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick. I'll come back out here. I'll double click on a word. So if I double click, it highlights a word. I can triple click, 1, 2, 3, and it highlights a paragraph. If I come over here till I get the pointer, I can highlight different rows that I might want to do something with. And then also, by the way, if I double click on a word, let's say I want to do something with this word, so I'll double click. Come on now, mouse. Be nice. 1, 2. There we are. And I hit the Control key, come over, double click. I now have 2 words selected. And with these 2 words, if I come over here and bold, it would bold these 2 words. So here's the thing. When I do that selection, if you notice, I get this mini toolbar. That's the toolbar. So if you don't like this, going back to where we started, options, I can turn off that mini toolbar. I can do live preview, update document. Now this might be important here. If you've registered your computer or your computer came pre-registered, it may not have your name here. It may say Dell user, for example, in which case you can change the name here. And we'll see how that might be important when we start practicing track changes. So a lot of things we can change here, from display settings, proofing, how I save a document. If you notice, by default, it is going to auto-save every 10 minutes. Now, if you're a fast typist, 10 minutes may be typing a lot of stuff that you don't want to lose. You might want to bring that down. Okay, so there's auto-save, the auto-recover location, where the default location is going to open. So if you notice, when I say File Save As, it's going to open into Documents by default. Change language, some advanced things. I can even come up here to the ribbon and add or delete common things that I use all the time. So one of the things that I use is this Developer tab. So if I go ahead and click that, and turn it on, you notice I now have a developer tab where I can do things like macros and groupings and create custom designs, document templates, etc. Restrict editing, for example, is under the development tab. So some things to keep in mind. If I come out here and I don't want to end up doing anything, I just hit the button at the top. So there's some basic change word settings. Now I would suggest that you go through that with some more detail, search around and see what's available. So edit text in a document. Well, if I put my cursor here in front of this word, I can then insert text by default. So video that provides a powerful way. This will not make sense as I type. It's an example. So other ways, well, I can double click a word. My mouse is being, and say superpower, for example. And if you notice, I'm superpowers. I've replaced that word because I was clicked on that word. Okay, so edit text is pretty easy. Couple things to know. My on my keyboard, my home key will get me to the top. My end key will take me to the end. My control end takes me to the end of the document. And when I'm here, note my home key doesn't work. I have to go control home to get back to the top. So there are some things that are really cool to know. And one of them is to see the non-printed text. And if you see this backward P here, it is the show hide formatting symbols. If I turn that on, we see some basic formatting. When I selected this text, it put a carriage return here. Let me put another line in there with an additional carriage return. So that's what I would see with a carriage return. And then this is what I would see if I indented with a tab. Notice a 1/2 inch tab, okay, is going to indent. Let me tab one more time, and the whole thing indents. So you can see, let me come down here, I'll do a tab again, okay, and we see special characters. Let me show you how not to tab. So I'm going to backspace here, and you'll see the difference here. This is how people cheat to tab. They cheat that way to align things up in their document. That's not the way to set good tabs. We're going to see in another lesson how we can use our ruler up here to set left tabs, right tabs, center tabs, decimal tabs, so that things line up really well on our sheet. So there are the non-printed characters. Now, where this is important, by the way, is if I'm not familiar with this, the non-printed characters, and I've done something like this where I have all this space and this is turned off, I'm like, I don't know what's creating all this space. Well, if I turn on non-printed characters, I can see that it's a bunch of blank paragraphs. So I can come and hit the delete key, bring that paragraph back up, and make my document look good. So you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. Presentation, presentation, presentation. If our document looks professionally put together, professionally formatted, the right styles, etc., it's going to be inviting to the reader. And as you know, we're going to spend some time with resumes, and those are pretty darn important things to have looking wonderful. So use the click and type setting. So this feature is really cool, the click and type setting. So let me just open up. This works best with a blank document. So I'll go grab another Word document here, blank document. There we are. And I'll open that up for us to see this. Now, I've got the show hide paragraph marks on so you can see what happens. Now, the click and type, normally, if you notice, a document's going to open. It's going to put us in the first character area based on our margins that you see here. But let's say I wanted this to be a cover page and I wanted to start typing right here in the center. Well, if I just double click twice, if you notice, it centers it up right where I am, and I can type here. So this works for, you know, being down on the page left margin, right margin, come over here. you know, but once I start typing, if you notice now, I'm kind of stuck. I now have a base format that if you notice it's going by. It's saying, hey, you typed that first line, you wanted to center that, that's where I'm going to take you. So kind of a cool little feature to allow you to not just be limited to typing in that first area. So change views and magnification in a document. Couple things. Number one, documents by default, okay, open in the reading view. Now in options, we can actually get rid of this so that it opens in my favorite view. Notice down here, the print layout view. So I like the print layout view. There is the reading view. And then also we can look at the web layout view. So this is what it would look like. And we're going to deal with this at the end when we go and save documents. We have different types of ways we can save documents. So those are some different views that we have. And then of course, magnification. Let me go back here to my print layout view. Magnification, if you notice, I'm currently at 144. Let me go down to 100. You can see that's kind of hard to read. So I can come up, I can go down. I like to use this here. You can also grab the little center and, as you can see, make really fine print. So that way, if you're working with an area of a document that you need to be more precise on, you can make it bigger. Or if you're like me and that text is too small to read, well, I can make the document bigger, and then I can use the scroll bar that comes up once the document has exceeded its window space in order to scroll where I need to scroll. So that's magnification in the document window. So navigate through a document. Well, we already did a lot of that. First of all, I can always come over here. I can use this vertical scroll to navigate through a document. That's one way to do it. I can double click. If you have a mouse with a wheel or a vertical sensor, up and down to get through a document. And then of course, I've already said when we're at the home, we can do end, which takes us to the end of the line, control end, which takes us to the bottom of the document, control home will take us to the top. And then if you notice next to the home and end, we have page up, page down. So I can go to the next page, what it considers a page down, page down, page up, page up. So other ways to navigate. Now we're also going to look at creating headers and footers and using a navigational map to get through that. So that works really well if we have a large document, we're reviewing it in an electronic environment, we can just click and say, go to this section of the document. We'll also look at bookmarks, which is another way to navigate. So that's the basics here. Now my suggestion, in case you forgot, I'll just go down a couple lines here, equals RAND, left parenthesis, this time I'll just do 5, 5. That, by the way, is 5 lines, 5 paragraphs, and if you notice, I now have 5 sentences, it's late, with 5 paragraphs, and I am ready to practice. Other things to do, to go through, well, start here. So what I would suggest is double click that first word. Come on now, there we go. I can bold that first word, double click the second word. I can italicize the second word. I'll skip the A, double click the third word. Come on, mouse. I must need to charge this mouse. I'm going to just use my pad. 1, 2. There we go. Underline that. 1, 2. Now here's an interesting one. This is Subscript. So if you notice, it goes down there. Where might we use this? Well, you're probably familiar with this. H2O, but you science geeks are going, no, that's not how we format that little puppy. Oh, sorry about that. So I'll come over here. I'll highlight the 2, and I will subscript it. So some of you are probably familiar with this. E equals MC squared. However, we need to superscript the 2. So we grab that 2, come over here, superscript it, add a space so we look good, and we're on our way. Double click here. We have a little text effects and typography, so I can pull that down, grab that, make that word stand out, double click, increase the font size. Notice I'm not changing the font style. Let me go ahead and do that as well. Grab Times New Roman. So now the U is 18-point font at Times New Roman. Double click the prove. Make it smaller. And then you can play with the rest. So highlighting, highlight text color, and then changing font colors as well. And then finally up here, well, clear all formatting. Notice it's not clearing all formatting because I don't have anything selected to clear the formatting on. So let me go ahead, I'll just say, you know what, there's enough. Let's go ahead and clear that formatting and it'll go back to the default font. We'll look at this later, but basically what this is if I find this to be pretty useful because I'll forget my caps lock is on, I'll hit the shift key, I'm not looking at the screen, I'm just typing away, blah, 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 and my sentence is wrong. I can highlight the sentence and change it to the proper sentence case. Let me go ahead and just highlight some of this. For example, I'll come up here, I can make it all lowercase. Notice it changed the 2. I can make it all uppercase. I can capitalize each word. I can toggle case. I've found no reason for this except to untoggle case and then sentence case. So there's some casing. Where might we use some of those? Well, you know, definitely instead of having to go back if you have a long title and you're like, oh, I wanted to capitalize the first letter of each word in the title. Just highlight the title and capitalize the first word. All right, folks, so that's it. I hope this lesson helps. Have a great day.